The ship landed on Velar Prime just as the twin suns were rising. Park stood at the window and watched the golden light spread across the alien world. She had traveled for 3 months to reach this place. 3 months alone in a small ship, eating recycled food and dreaming of home. Now she was finally here, at the most famous military academy in the galaxy. She was the first human to ever be accepted. Was not tall. She was not strong. She stood only 165 centimeters and weighed 54 kilograms. Back on Earth, in the small town near where she grew up, she was considered average. Here, among aliens who stood over 2 meters tall and had claws and fangs and armored skin, she looked like a child. She wore the uniform of a new cadet. Her black hair was pulled back tight. Around her neck, she wore a high collar that covered her throat completely. Some of the other passengers on the transport ship had asked her why she wore it, even in the heat. She never answered them. The academy gates were made of white crystal that shone like diamonds. They were so tall that had to lean back to see the top. 2 guards stood at the entrance. They were a species known across the galaxy for their strength and love of war. Their skin was blue and covered in hard scales. Their eyes were gold and cold. Each one was at least 2 meters tall and carried weapons that could destroy a building. They looked down at like she was an insect. "Human," one of them said. The word sounded like a curse. "Yes," said, "I am Cadet Park. I am here for orientation." The guards looked at each other. One of them made a sound that might have been a laugh. Then they stepped aside and let her pass. The main hall of the academy was filled with aliens of every kind. Saw the warriors with their blue scales. She saw the who looked like giant insects with 6 legs and sharp mandibles. She saw the who had wings like bats and moved through the air instead of walking. She saw species she had no name for, creatures with tentacles and extra eyes and bodies made of living stone. All of them stared at her. Some of them pointed. Some of them made sounds of amusement. A group of clicked their mandibles together in a rhythm that knew was laughter. She kept walking. The orientation room was at the end of a long hallway. Inside, hundreds of cadets sat in rows of seats that rose up like a stadium. At the front, a stage held a single podium. Behind it stood Commander, the academy's senior instructor. Was but older than the guards at the gate. His scales were darker, almost black, and covered in scars from countless battles. He had only one eye. The other was covered by a metal patch that glowed faintly red. He watched enter with his single eye. His expression showed nothing. "Find a seat," he said. His voice was deep and rough. Looked at the rows of seats. The front rows were filled with the species with the most power in the galaxy. The middle rows held other aliens of various kinds. The back row was almost empty. She walked to the back and sat down. Commander began to speak. He talked about the history of the academy, which had trained warriors for over 10,000 years. He talked about the honor of serving the Galactic Council. He talked about the standards that every cadet was expected to meet. Then he picked up "We have a special cadet this year," he said. "The Galactic Council has decided to allow a human to attend our academy. This is the first time in our history." Every head in the room turned to look at. "Human," continued, reading from the female, "from a planet called Earth in the outer regions of the galaxy. Her species only discovered faster-than-light travel 200 years ago. They have no natural weapons. No claws, no venom, no armor. Their bodies are soft and weak." He put down the council believes in diversity," he said. There was something in his voice that sounded like disgust. "We will see if this human can meet our standards." The room erupted in laughter. Clicks and growls and hisses filled the air. A near the front turned around and made a gesture that did not recognize but understood was an insult. She sat still and said nothing. That night found her dormitory room. It was small, with 2 beds and a single window that looked out at the alien sky. She was putting her few belongings away when the door opened. A female walked in. She was huge, even for her species, with bright blue scales and muscles that looked like they were made of steel. She had to duck to fit through the doorway. "You are the human," she said. It was not a question. "Yes, I am. I am your." She did not sound happy about it. "I requested a different room, but they said no." "I understand." Moved closer. She was so tall that had to look up to see her face. Her golden eyes were hard and unfriendly. "You will not last here, little creature. Humans are soft. You have no claws to fight with, no armor to protect you, no venom to kill your enemies." She leaned down and her breath was hot and smelled like acid. "What do you even have?" Looked up at her without fear. "Patience," she said. Stared at her for a long moment. Then she made a sound that might have been a laugh and walked to her own bed. "Patience," she repeated. "We will see how long your patience lasts." Lay down on her bed and looked at the ceiling. Outside, the twin suns of Velar Prime were setting, and the room was filling with strange purple shadows. She touched her collar, feeling the hidden skin beneath it. "We will see," she whispered to herself. 3 weeks passed at the academy. Every day brought new training, new tests, and new humiliation for. The morning exercises were the worst. All cadets had to run around the training field 10 times. The field was 5 kilometers around, so this meant 50 kilometers of running. Though with their 6 legs, finished in less than an hour. Though with their powerful bodies, finished in 2 hours. They simply flew above the track and laughed at everyone below. Took 6 hours. By the time she finished, the twin suns were high in the sky and her legs felt like they were on fire. Her lungs burned. Her heart pounded so hard she thought it might explode. But she finished. She always finished. The strength training was even harder. Cadets had to lift heavy blocks of metal and carry them across the training yard. The lifted blocks that weighed over 500 kilograms. They carried them easily, like toys. When it was turn, she could barely lift the smallest block, which weighed only 50 kilograms. The aliens watched her struggle. They clicked and growled and hissed their laughter. "Look at the little human," a cadet said. His name was, and he was the strongest cadet in the academy. His scales were dark blue, almost purple, and his body was covered in combat implants that made him even stronger. "It cannot even lift a baby's weight." Did not answer, she just kept trying. She lifted the block 1 centimeter off the ground, then 2, then 3. Her arms shook. Her back screamed in pain, but she did not stop. Finally, after 20 minutes, she managed to carry the block across the yard. She dropped it at the finish line and fell to her knees, gasping for breath. No one cheered. No one was impressed. To them, she was still a joke. In the evening, sat alone in the dining hall. The other cadets avoided her. Some of them threw food at her when the instructors were not looking. She ate quietly and did not complain. A man sat down across from her. He was human, the only other human on Velar Prime. His name was, and he worked for Earth's diplomatic service. His job was to watch and report on her progress. "You do not have to do this," he said quietly. "Everyone expects you to fail. You can go home with honor. No one will blame you." Looked at him. Her eyes were tired but still sharp. "I am not doing this for everyone," she said. "I am doing this for me." "But why? Why put yourself through this pain?" Was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "My grandmother used to tell me stories about our family. She said we were survivors. She said that no matter how hard life became, we always found a way to keep going. Stories are not enough to survive this place." "No," agreed, "but they are a good start." The tactical examination came at the end of the month. Every cadet had to present a famous battle from their home world. They had to explain the strategy, the tactics, and the outcome. It was a test of intelligence, not strength. They went first. They showed the conquest of the 7 moons, a war where their species had destroyed 7 planets to gain control of a star system. The presentation was full of images of death and destruction. The cadets cheered. They showed the Hive Wars, where billions of their kind had moved as one mind to defeat their enemies. The coordination was perfect, like a machine made of living creatures. They showed the Sky Dominion, where they had attacked their enemies from above and never touched the ground. Their enemies could not fight what they could not reach. Then it was turn. She walked to the holographic display. Every alien in the room stared at her. Some were bored. Some were amused. None of them expected anything important. "I will present the Battle of Reservoir," said. "It happened on my planet over 400 years ago." Commander made a dismissive sound. "A battle between humans. What could we possibly learn from your primitive wars?" The room filled with laughter. Waited for the laughter to stop. Then she activated the display. A frozen landscape appeared, mountains covered in snow, a long road winding through a valley, and soldiers, tiny human soldiers, marching through the ice. 30,000 soldiers, said. They were surrounded by 120,000 enemies. The temperature was -35 degrees. They had no air support. Their supplies were cut off. Everyone expected them to die. The laughter faded a little. They fought for 17 days. They walked through the snow and ice, carrying their wounded on their backs. They carried their dead because they refused to leave them behind. They killed 4 times more enemies than they lost. The room was silent now. When they finally escaped, they called themselves the Few. They became legends. Turned off the display. "You asked what humans have," she said. "We do not have claws, we do not have armor, we do not have venom, but we have something else." She looked at who was staring at her with narrowed eyes. "We do not know how to give up." The room remained silent for a long moment. Then Commander waved his hand. "Next presentation," he said. But as walked back to her seat, she noticed something. The aliens were not laughing anymore. They were watching her with different eyes. Not respect, not yet. But maybe, just maybe, a little bit of fear. After the tactical examination, everything changed. The aliens stopped laughing at, but they did not start respecting her. Instead, they started hating her. Hated her most of all. He was the best cadet in the academy. He had never lost a fight. He had never failed a test. He was the pride of the people, and he expected to graduate at the top of his class. But now, the other cadets were talking about the human. They were whispering about her presentation. They were wondering if maybe, just maybe, she was not as weak as she looked. Could not allow this. He found after training one day, when she was walking alone through the academy halls. He stepped in front of her and blocked her path. His massive body filled the entire hallway. "Human," he said. His voice was low and dangerous. Replied, she did not step back. "Your little presentation was interesting. You told a nice story about your weak ancestors fighting in the snow." He leaned closer. "But stories mean nothing here. This is not a place for storytellers. This is a place for warriors." "I know what this place is." "Do you? Then you know about the Crucible Challenge." His heart beat faster, but her face showed nothing. She knew about the Crucible. Every cadet knew. It was an old tradition, older than the academy itself. Any cadet could challenge another cadet to single combat. The fight continued until one person surrendered or died. If you refused a challenge, you were expelled. "I am challenging you," said. "Tomorrow, in the arena, we will see if humans can do more than tell stories." He turned and walked away. That night sat in her dormitory room. Was there too, watching her with curious eyes. "You should run," said. "Leave the academy tonight, go back to your planet." "If I run, I'm expelled." "Better expelled than dead. Has killed 7 people in Crucible challenges. 7. He enjoys it." Said nothing. "You cannot win," continued. "He is stronger than you, faster than you. His claws can cut through metal. His scales can stop bullets. You are just meat to him." Maybe. Then why stay and die? Was quiet for a long moment. Then slowly she reached up and pulled down her collar. His golden eyes went wide. Across throat there was a tattoo, black ink on brown skin, Korean characters that could not read and numbers, 1951-953. What is that? Asked. It says survive. The numbers are the years of the war I told you about, the battle of. I do not understand. Touched the tattoo gently. My great-great-grandmother was at that battle. She was a nurse, only 19 years old. When everything fell apart, when everyone was dying, she carried 2 wounded soldiers on her back. She walked 40 kilometers through the snow and ice. Her feet were so frozen that she lost 3 toes, but she survived. She saved those men. One woman did this. She was small like me, weak like me. Everyone thought she would die, but she did not. Pulled her collar back up. I come from a family of survivors. My grandmother survived the war. My mother survived poverty and disease, and I will survive this. Stared at her for a long time. Then she stood up and walked to the door. You are going to die tomorrow, she said, but I think I understand now why you will not run. She left the room. The next morning came to find. His face was pale with worry. I heard about the challenge, he said. This is madness. You need to refuse. I cannot refuse. Then let me call Earth. Let me get you transport off this planet. We can find another way. There is no other way. Was putting on her fighting clothes, simple pants and a shirt. If I run, humans will be seen as cowards forever. Every human who comes after me will be treated even worse. If you die, no human will ever come here again. Looked at him, her eyes were calm. Then I will not die. How can you say that? You have seen he is a monster. I have seen him, agreed. I have watched him for 17 weeks. I have watched how he moves, how he fights, how he thinks. I know his strengths. And what about his weaknesses? Smiled. It was a small smile, but it was real. Everyone has weaknesses, even monsters. The arena was built in the center of the academy. It was a circle of sand surrounded by rows of seats that rose up high into the sky. Today, every seat was filled, and 100 other species had come to watch. They had come to watch a human die. Walked into the arena. The sand was soft under her feet. The twin suns beat down on her head. She could hear the crowd making sounds of excitement and amusement. She looked up at the thousands of alien faces. Then she reached up and pulled down her collar. The crowd grew quiet. They could see the tattoo on her throat, black ink on brown skin, characters in a language none of them knew. But they could see something else now too. As removed her outer shirt, they saw more tattoos covering her arms, her shoulders, her back. Words and numbers and names, all in black ink. What is she doing? Someone in the crowd whispered. Stood in the center of the arena, covered in the marks of her ancestors, and waited for her enemy to arrive. Entered the arena like a god of war. He was enormous. His blue scales shone in the sunlight like armor made of sapphires. His muscles moved under his skin like snakes. His claws were long and black, enhanced with chemicals that could cut through starship metal. His eyes burned with hunger for violence. The crowd roared when they saw him. They chanted his name. They stamped their feet until the arena shook. Then they saw and they laughed. She looked like a child standing before a giant. Her thin body was covered in strange tattoos. She had no weapons, no armor, nothing but her small fists and her steady eyes. What are those marks on your skin? Asked. He was smiling, enjoying the moment. Human decoration, war paint. They are my family, said. Your family, laughed. What do they matter? They are not here. You are alone. No, settled into a fighting stance. Her feet spread apart, her hands raised. She looked like a small rock facing a hurricane. They are always with me. The signal sounded. The fight began. Attacked immediately. He was fast, impossibly fast for his size. His claws cut through the air, aiming for his throat. But she was not there. She had moved at the last moment, sliding under his arm and rolling across the sand. Before he could turn, she struck his knee with her fist. Once, twice, 3 times. Stumbled. The crowd went silent. It was impossible. A human could not hurt her. Their scales were too strong, their bodies too powerful, but had not struck the scales. She had struck the joint, the small gap where the scales did not cover. She had struck the nerve that ran underneath. For a moment, Sleg went weak. He recovered quickly, spinning around with a roar. His tail swept across the sand like a whip, hitting in the chest and throwing her 5 meters through the air. She landed hard, rolling across the sand. The crowd cheered. Got up. Her ribs screamed in pain. At least one was cracked, maybe more. But she stood anyway, her hands raised, her eyes focused. Stared at her. You should stay down, human. That was just a taste. The next hit will break you. Then come break me, said. He charged again. The fight became a dance of death, was power and rage, attacking with claws and tail and teeth. Each hit he landed was devastating. He broke 2 more of his ribs. He dislocated her shoulder. He opened deep cuts on her back and legs that bled freely into the sand. But he could not finish her. Every time she fell, she got back up. Every time he thought she was done, she struck back. She hit his joints, his nerve clusters, the soft places where his armor did not protect him. She could not hurt him badly, but she could slow him down. She could make him feel pain. And she never, ever stopped. 30 minutes passed. The crowd had stopped cheering. They watched in silence, unable to look away. Was breathing hard. His perfect scales were covered in small marks where his fists had found their targets. His leg was not working correctly. His left arm was numb from a strike to his elbow. And still the human stood. She was covered in blood, her own blood soaking through her clothes and dripping onto the sand. One of her eyes was swollen shut. She held her dislocated arm against her body, useless. She could barely breathe. But she stood. What are you? Asked. There was something in his voice that had not been there before, something that sounded almost like fear. I am human, said. Her voice was weak but clear. I am a survivor. You are dead, you just do not know it yet. Maybe, but I am still standing. Are you going to keep talking or are you going to fight? Roared and charged. The next 10 minutes were brutal. Stopped trying to end the fight quickly. He started trying to hurt her, to punish her, to make her suffer for embarrassing him. He beat her, again and again. He threw her across the arena. He slammed her into the ground. He cut her with his claws until her clothes turned red. And she kept getting up. The crowd was no longer silent. They were no longer laughing. They were watching something they had never seen before. They were watching a human refuse to die. Finally, after 47 minutes, could not stand anymore. She lay on the sand, broken and bleeding. Her breath came in shallow gasps. Her body would not obey her commands. Stood over her, his claws raised for the killing blow. It is over, he said. You fought well for a human, better than I expected, but now you die. Looked up at him. Blood covered her face. She could barely see through her swollen eyes. But she smiled. No, she whispered. Her hand shot out and grabbed his ankle. Her fingers found the gap in his scales, the place where she had been hitting all fight. She pressed down with all her remaining strength on the damaged nerve. And she twisted. Screamed. It was a sound no one in the arena had ever heard before. A warrior screaming in pain. His leg collapsed. He fell to his knees, trying to pull away, but held on. Let go, he screamed. Let go. You first, she said. Her fingers pressed deeper. She could feel his tendons under his scales. She could feel the nerve cluster that controlled his leg. She had studied biology for weeks. She knew exactly where to press. His claws came down toward her head. But they stopped. "Yield," said. Her voice was barely a whisper. "Yield or I tear out your leg." I do not yield." "Then you will never walk again." She twisted harder, screamed again, and then, in a voice that echoed across the silent arena, he said the word that no warrior ever wanted to say. "I yield. Let go." She lay on the sand, looking up at the purple sky of Velar Prime. She could not move. She could barely breathe, but she was alive. She had survived. Woke up 3 days later in the medical wing of the academy. The room was white and clean. Strange machines beeped softly around her bed. Her body was wrapped in bandages, and she could feel the medicine working inside her, repairing her broken bones and torn muscles. She tried to sit up, but her body refused. "Do not move," a voice said. "You are not healed yet." Turned her head. Commander stood at the foot of her bed, his single eye watching her. She said, her voice was rough and dry, "Is he alive?" "He will live. His leg required much surgery. The doctors say he will walk again, but he will never run as fast as before." Paused. "You damaged him permanently." "He would have killed me." "Yes, he would have." Moved closer. His face showed no emotion. "Do you understand what you have done, human?" Closed her eyes. "I survived." "No, you did much more than that." Sat down in a chair beside her bed. It was strange to see him sit. He always stood, always looked down at everyone. Was undefeated. 32 crucible challenges, 32 victories. Many of his opponents died. The rest were broken. He was the pride of the people. And I beat him. A small human female beat him. A creature with no claws, no armor, no natural weapons of any kind. I narrowed. "Do you know what the other cadets are saying about you?" "No." "They are calling you the Undying. They say humans do not know how to stay dead." Almost laughed, but it hurt too much. "That is a good name." "It is not a joke." Leaned forward. "I have commanded this academy for 40 years. I have seen warriors from 100 different worlds. I have seen strength and speed and power beyond what you can imagine, but I have never seen anything like you. I am not special, I am just human. That is what frightens them." Opened her eyes and looked at him. "Frightens them." "After your fight, the cadets began searching your planet's history, all of them. They wanted to understand how you did what you did. Do you know what they found?" "Waited." "They found your world wars, where your species killed millions of its own kind and then rebuilt everything. They found your diseases, where billions died and the survivors kept going. They found your famines and your disasters and your endless conflicts." Shook his head slowly. "They found a species that destroys itself over and over again and never stops. We are not proud of those things. You should be, not of the death, not of the suffering, but of the survival." Stood up. "Every species in this galaxy became strong by defeating others, the conquered their enemies, the absorbed them, the destroyed them from above. But humans became strong by defeating themselves, by surviving things that should have killed you." He walked to the window and looked out at the academy grounds. "That is why they are afraid," he said. "They do not know how to fight an enemy that cannot be destroyed. They do not know how to defeat a species that has already defeated itself 1,000 times." 1 week later, returned to class. She walked slowly through the academy halls, still healing, still wrapped in bandages. But she walked on her own feet under her own power. The other cadets stopped and stared when they saw her. They did not laugh. They did not point. They stepped aside and let her pass. When she entered the classroom, every head turned to look at her. The room fell completely silent. Saw standing near the front row. The big female was watching her with strange eyes. "The front seat is empty," said. "Seat." Looked at it. The front row was where the best cadets sat. It was a place of honor. "That is his seat," she said. "Not anymore. He will not return to this class. He refuses." Hesitated. He says he can still feel your hand on his ankle. He wakes up screaming every night. For a moment, felt sorry for him. Then she remembered how he had smiled when he challenged her, how he had enjoyed the thought of killing her. The feeling passed. "The front seat is not for me," she said. "Not yet." "Why not? You defeated the best among us." Limped to her usual seat in the back row. Every alien in the room watched her go. "Because I am not done," she said. "When I graduate first in this class, then I will take the front row. Until then, I will stay here and work." Stared at her for a long moment. Then slowly, she lowered her head in the gesture of deep respect. "I believe you will do it," she said quietly. Sat down and looked out the window. The twin suns of Velar Prime were shining brightly. Somewhere out there, in the vast galaxy, other species were hearing about what had happened. They were hearing about the small human female who would not stay down. The undying. She touched her throat, feeling the tattoo hidden beneath her collar. The word her great-great-grandmother had carried through the frozen mountains of Korea 400 years ago. Survive. She had survived, and now she would do more than survive. She would show the galaxy what humans could do. She would prove that her species belonged among the stars. Not because they were the strongest, not because they were the fastest, not because they had the best weapons or the hardest armor, but because they never, ever gave up. The classroom door opened, and Commander walked in. He looked at sitting in the back row and gave her a small nod. Then he began the lesson. Outside the academy, word was spreading across the galaxy. Ships carried the story from world to world. The tale of the human female who had defeated a champion with nothing but her bare hands and her will to live. Humanity had arrived, and the galaxy would never be the same.